Yet another film that got panned for being too scary, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And yeah, again, I'm not gonna act like I don't see where they're coming from. Everything in this movie is huge, gigantic, and trying to kill you. It's totally understandable. But again, I think a lot of critics really underestimate how much kids could take because this movie was a big hit, and audiences loved it. Not only did it have a lot of impressive sets and some damn good effects at the time, but it had some funny side characters and an okay cast of main characters. It was a great big budget version of something that we've seen plenty of times before, but not quite to this scale. Rick Moranis is a scientist who's trying to create a machine that, you guessed it, can shrink things. But everything he tries to shrink down keeps blowing up in his face, literally. But that all changes when the neighbor's kid accidentally knocks a baseball into the machine, which figures out was the missing element. So both the neighbor's kids and the scientist's kids all get shrunken down. They get taken out with the trash, and all they have to do is cross the backyard in order to get home. Only now, the backyard is a jungle. They come across everything. Bees, ants, lawnmowers, sprinklers. Everyday little mundane things are now psychotic killers trying to destroy them. When I was a kid, I really enjoyed this film, and even today I do find I like it, but nowadays I find I enjoy more the technicals of it, like the sets, or the animatronics, or the stop motion, things like that. The story and characters aren't bad, they're just kind of okay, with the exception maybe Rick Moranis and Matt Frewer as the neighbors. The kids are kind of generic kids. You got your geeky little dweeb, you have the jock, you have the pretty girl, you have the pretty boy, of course they're gonna fall in love. It's fine. I mean, I can't think of anything that was really painful to go through. I guess I would have liked a little bit more though. But again, that's not the focus. The focus is the effects. That's pretty much how the story is told. Characters walk, talk a bit, then they come across an effect. Characters talk, walk a bit, then they come across an effect. And it's fine, that's what most kids want to see, and I guess that's what most adults want to see too. But in terms of character, I did find I enjoyed the stuff with Rick Moranis and the neighbors a lot more. That's where the main comedy seemed to come from. Everything else sort of falls into the wouldn't it be neat category. Not that these characters are bad, but you don't care as much what happens to them as much as, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I was there? I want to eat that giant cookie, I want to ride that giant ant, I want to do all this stuff. Except maybe the stuff that's trying to kill you, that we could skip. So overall, it's an okay film with some really cool effects in it. If the effects weren't there, it'd probably be a bit of a bore, but they are, and they're impressive, and the story leads to a lot of great grand effects, and they're fun to check out. Some scenes can be a little intense for younger kids, but again, nothing bloody, nothing really that terrifying. It's just intense. Check it out for yourself and find out. After the disappointment of The Black Cauldron, Disney suddenly got on this huge kick. Not only were they going to turn out better products, but they were going to turn them out fast. The films went from coming out every 5 to 7 to even 10 years to suddenly every year. And the film that sparked the Disney Golden Era? The revolutionary film that starred hit after hit after hit again? The Little Mermaid. Yeah, you all know it, you've all seen it, and now we're going to talk about it. Is there any point in comparing it to the Hans Christian Andersen story? I mean, we all know she doesn't die in the end. Disney wouldn't do that. In fact, hell, I think they couldn't do that. So much like Oliver and Company, let's just keep it to the content as is. This is the first film in a long time where the animation was actually looking like Disney animation again. This was the return to the fairy tale, the smooth lines, the nice songs, the beautiful backgrounds, all the stuff that started with Snow White and most people think of when they hear the word Disney. The story is about Ariel, a 16-year-old girl who's obsessed with being on dry land. Her father forbids it, but then she falls in love with a handsome prince. After saving his life, she decides that she absolutely wants to become human so that she can be with him. So she sells her voice to Ursula the Sea Witch and gets herself a pair of legs. The only downside is she can't tell the prince who she is, which means she has to start from scratch in order to win him over. Of course, while the Sea Witch is plotting her way to get control of the underworld, or underwater world. The feedback I get from this movie is fascinating, and not actually from guys, believe it or not, but from women. I find they either love or hate this movie, and all of it centers around the main character, Ariel. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's look at the good stuff. The music, you know it in and out. It's Alan Menken's songs, and man, are they memorable, catchy as hell. They're bouncy, they're fun, they're slow, they're romantic, they're diabolical. He gets the tone just right. The comic relief, they're also fun. There's some fun tidbits with the crab, you have Buddy Hackett as the seagull, there's that crazy ass chef voiced by Odo. It's pretty good. The animation? Top notch. This is the animation people wanted to see from Disney for a while, and man did it blow people away. It still blows me away. Watching it today, looking at these angles, looking at the colors, everything, it just pops. The villain is great. Much like Radigan, she just so enjoys what she's doing. Although it's much more of a revenge fest than it is just to be evil. So maybe her plot has a little bit more motivation. And I like the fact that this was the first Disney film where the couple actually had to build their romance from something. They didn't just meet and suddenly love each other. Well, okay, they meet and they love each other, but at the same time they have to meet and they have to work at it again. It's not like Snow White where they meet and they get married, or Sleeping Beauty where they meet, they sing, and suddenly they're in love. There is some development here, even though it did take, what, 3 days? Well, okay, in the Disneyverse, that was a long time then. But let's get to what most women either love or hate. The Little Mermaid herself, Ariel. Okay, so what's bad about her? Well, she is whiny. Even her nice songs when you get down to it is just very pretty whining. She certainly has all the typical 16-year-old cliches, like hating her father, talking about boys, wanting to throw her life away for them. But let's be honest, that's kind of typical for a lot of girls. So maybe that's why some women hate it. I mean, I guess Bella is living out a lot of girls' fantasies too, but it doesn't necessarily make her a good character. But she definitely has a passion and a drive that sets her apart from a lot of the other Disney women. She's a hopeless romantic, but she's also determined. When she wants something, she'll go to whatever lengths it takes to get it. So, for the most part, I thought a lot of the backlash about the character was just sort of nitpicking. But then I watched Lindsay's review and she brought this up.
She doesn't really change. She doesn't learn anything. Ariel wants something, there are obstacles, she gets what she wants, the end.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Despite her causing all this trouble, she still gets exactly what she wants. She whines and complains, and in the end, she's rewarded for it. But you could make a very slim argument that once they have her and she's apologizing, that she has acknowledged she made a mistake. And that admittedly, she shouldn't have done it.
Daddy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
But the scene is 2 seconds long, and I don't know, she gets her way anyway at the end, so it doesn't really matter. I guess there are some major character flaws with her, so why do I still enjoy her? Well, horrible to say, I actually really like it when she can't talk. Yeah, I know, make whatever women shouldn't speak joke you want, but that's not the reason I like it. I like it because her curiosity comes out in full bloom. She isn't complaining here, she's enjoying. She's in heaven seeing all these new things. She's a wanderer, she's an explorer, she likes discovering things. And nowhere does that come out clearer in just the simple expressions and the great animation here. Even her songs, which are complaining, I guess, actually really do show how she feels about a situation. And is very passionate. So I guess that's what a lot of people really do get behind in this movie. So yeah, deconstructing childhoods aside, how does this film hold up? Well, I guess it has the ethical flaws that a lot of people say are just ethical flaws in Disney films in general. You know, just meeting a person in a day, wanting to marry them, not always dealing with the consequences of your actions. But the stuff that's good is really friggin' good. The music, like I said, outstanding. Some of the best. The animation, stellar. The comic relief, memorable. The villain, awesome. Even the father character, a character that usually gets tossed aside in most Disney movies, is actually pretty well developed here. And our main characters, despite their flaws, still have a lot of things you can like about them. Personally, I still really enjoy it. It has its issues, but the good stuff is just too damn good. And this would only be the first monster hit that would set Disney on a roll. I have never seen a film that looks like Dick Tracy. And I know a lot of people say that, oh, this imagery isn't like anything you've ever seen, blah, 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 but it's really true. I can't think of any other movie that looks like this. This might be the most ambitiously visual spectacle I've seen in years. It's crazy. The colors, the designs, the costumes, the makeup, it's totally insane. Which is why it really sucks that I can't remember a single friggin' thing about it. Is it that the visuals were so good it distracted from the rest of the story? Or is it that the story wasn't really that hot to begin with? Dick Tracy, based on the famous newspaper comic strip, is the yellow trench coat wearing cop played by Warren Beatty, who's trying to take down the massive crime in his fair city. His arch nemesis, Big Boy, played by Al Pacino, is the yelling and screaming mob gangster who constantly wants to put him out of his way. He comes across a kid simply named Kid, a singer named Breathless Mahoney, played by Madonna, and all sorts of weird and literally colorful characters that constantly want to kill him. There's Flat Top Babyface, the Blank. They only get crazier and crazier. Okay, so the basic story is good guy versus bad guy, has cute kid sidekick, has a femme fatale, all the classic stuff you usually see in a lot of film noirs and so on. That part is easy to follow. What's not easy to follow is the steps they're taking to create this formula. There's a lot of talk of business, a lot of talk of fraud, a lot of talk of strategy, a lot of talk of planning, a lot of talk of breaking in, busting a person, and yeah, we see it happen, but what do we really know about these people? Aside from Al Pacino, who's really yucking it up as the bad guy, there's nothing memorable about these characters. Warren Beatty is a tough cop, and that's about it. Madonna is the hot singer, and that's about it. The wisecracking kid's a wisecracking kid, and that's about it. You get where I'm going with this? Hearing them talk is not very riveting, and it's constantly being distracted by how incredible the backgrounds are. When the action finally does start, it looks pretty cool, but what do I care if any of these people get axed off? A part of me kind of respects that they're trying to take such a cartoonily silly looking film so seriously, but on the other hand, I just wish it could have been more interesting. I remember in the credits it said that Dick Van Dyke was in this movie. Dick Van Dyke? Where the hell was he? Oh, there he is. God, I didn't even notice him. He's in and out of the film so fast that he's barely even worth the credit. If Dick Van freaking Dyke can't leave an impact on you in a movie, you know there's gotta be something wrong with it. On top of that, there's a lot of scenes in the movie that are just downright gruesome, especially for a Disney film. Early on, they take this one gangster down by tying him up, putting him in a box, covering him in wet cement, and then throwing him in the river. All while he's crying and sobbing the whole time. That's pretty fucking intense. Don't get me wrong, I like a little dark and gritty in Disney films, but that's like something right out of a nightmare. I guess to the film's credit, it's not that it's really bad or annoying, it's just kind of dull. Like I said, I can barely remember what actually happened in this movie. I just remember it looked beautiful while it was happening. With that said, yeah, it is friggin' unbelievable to look at. I mean, who would dress this way? Who would design their buildings this way? Who would choose these colors? Who would have faces this bizarrely weird? Nobody would. It's obviously taking the idea of adapting the comic strip, which was very bright, colorful, and over the top, to a whole new level. It's definitely in its own unique world, one where the backgrounds don't even have to look that convincing. I mean, look at this. This is so obviously a matte painting. They're not even trying to hide the brushstrokes. But that's just part of the style. It all looks phony, but in the same way that a puppeteer holding a puppet you know is phony, but you don't care. It's just so well done that you enjoy every second of it. So I'm kind of torn on the movie. On the one hand, I'm glad I saw it, if for any other reason, just to see it. But on the other hand, yeah, why couldn't they make the story more interesting? Why couldn't they flesh out the characters more? Why couldn't they be a lot more fun? Like I said, Pacino's great, but everyone else is just so phoned in and standard. Just because they look distinct doesn't mean they act distinct. I remember the makeup and the layout much more than I remember anything else in this film, and that's really a shame. If this did have a memorable story and characters, maybe it could be like one of the great film noirs. A film that plays to incredibly heavy shadows but also somehow incredibly heavy colors. It could have been sort of this one-of-a-kind masterpiece. But as is, it's really just a style over substance movie. If you want to see the style and you just enjoy watching people in trench coats and fedora hats punch each other and shoot, then you'll at least be glad that you saw it. But if none of that does it for you, then I'm sad to say this is a very unfortunate skip. A lot of times when people try to take a successful TV show and make a movie out of it, the number one complaint is that it just seems like a longer version of an episode. But with DuckTales, it kind of makes sense because every episode was kind of like a mini movie. So why not make an actual movie out of it? In this case, it definitely pays off, and it's kind of a shame it doesn't get more attention than it deserves. It's funny because this came out near the same time as The Rescuers Down Under, another adventurous Disney film that doesn't get enough attention. It has all the great animation, the characters you remember, a lot of great action, a few good jokes. It's an enjoyable family film. Scrooge McDuck and the gang are on the search for the treasure of Kali Baba, get it? But their tour guide, named Dijon, is working for an evil sorcerer named Murloc, played by Christopher Lloyd.
Just keep searching while I hunt outside. They will not escape!
He knows that the real treasure of Kali Baba lies in this magic lamp, and that with his magic talisman that can turn him into any animal, can combine it with the lamp to get unlimited wishes. The lamp, however, falls out of his hands and instead into the hands of Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby, who discover the crazy genie inside, played by Rip Taylor. He's zany and goofy, of course, and befriends the kids very quickly. Once Scrooge discovers it, he uses it, of course, for greedy means, and while being chased down by the evil sorcerer, he discovers what truly matters and blah blah blah, action, learning a lesson, all that good stuff. Okay, so there's no groundbreaking morals there to be learned here, but that's not what DuckTales was all about. In fact, DuckTales wasn't even as much about action as it was adventure. And this is a really enjoyable adventure. I feel like all the characters we've grown to love get the proper amount of screen time that they deserve. Christopher Lloyd is menacing, of course, as the villain, and Rip Taylor is an adequate genie. I do feel bad because shortly after, a much funnier Disney genie would pop about that nobody could really compete with. But for something that's more focused on kids and family and not really adult jokes, I think it works okay. It's fine because the animation on the show was already pretty impressive, so they had to up it even more for the movie, and it really looks good. The only thing that might raise a few eyebrows is the character of Dijon. I don't know, is this an offensive character now?
Oh, good golly, what a time we have been having. Yes, I was just now leaving. Goodbye.
Back then, nobody thought twice about it, but nowadays with people's sensitivities, I'm not sure if this could be taken the wrong way or not. I mean, he does have a thick accent, and he is a thief. I personally never thought they were saying anything about an entire race, but maybe that's why it never got such a major DVD release. I don't know, he's fine by me, but some people might take it a different way. Like I said before, it's just one big DuckTales episode, but we all really like the DuckTales episodes and what they had to give us, and here it is on a grand scale. I'd be lying if I said it was as good as the original few episodes that were tied together in the beginning. But hey, we're doing a movie now, and you gotta play by movie rules, and for playing by movie rules, I think this film does really well. And it's entertaining and it's engaging. Does it have a ton of adult stuff? Not especially, I'd say it's more family oriented. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's done well, it's done creatively, and it's a whole lot of fun. So if you like the show growing up or you're a big fan of adventure, this is definitely one to check out.